livestock holders and farmers had abandoned their farms, either because the bandits had stolen their assets or out of fear for their lives. We identified the Kamuku-Kuyambana forest range running from Niger State through Birnungwari in Kaduna State and across most of the northwest states at the major bandit enclave. We initiated discussions with our neighboring states, and the governors developed a shared appreciation of the problem and decided to collaborate to try to resolve it. With remarkable unanimity, the governors of the Northwest states and Niger State jointly provided the funding of a military operation for which the federal government committed its assets. The military operations in the Birnungwari axis decimated the bandits and heralded a massive reduction in cattle rustling, but the relief proved sadly momentary. With the military operations not becoming continuous or simultaneous in all states, the bandits initially scattered, regrouped, and intensified kidnappings in rural communities, along highways, and on the fringes of major population areas. Banditry is badly hurting our rural economy, driving farmers off the land, stealing their cattle, kidnapping them and their families for ransom, and often killing them. About a third of our 23 local governments are affected by these crimes. The locus of banditry in the last 15 months has been in the northern and central senatorial districts of our state. Bandits have also complicated the historical communal clashes that blighted lives in parts of southern Kaduna senatorial district in the latter half of the year 2020. Thanks to some courageous leadership at the grassroots, a community-based peace process in Zangon Kataf and Jama'a local government areas is helping to reduce communal tensions and incline the communities towards inclusively peaceful way of resolving differences. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling this story of our experience in Kaduna State to remind everyone of our people that our people, Nigerians, are victims of these criminals, and illustrate that we feel the pains of victims of other parts of the country. We've faced these problems since 2015. Some are just facing it for the first time. Our experience also teaches us a few things which should inform our collective responses. Number one, the Nigerian state has not jealously and consistently protected its prerogatives and status as Leviathan, the ultimate guarantor of security, the protector of rights, and the promoter of the rule of law. That is why its power is being challenged, and in a frighteningly sustained manner by a phalanx of armed non-state actors. Lesson 2. Our national level security response to these challenges has been uncoordinated and ineffective in wiping out the threats. None of the military services nor other security agencies have been suitably expanded in numbers and equipment for over a decade since the insurgency in the Northeast pushed things to a new law. This country does not have enough soldiers, uniformed police, or secret police to project state power across its vast swaths, particularly the forests. The limited number of boots on the ground are not well equipped and are significantly lacking in the technology that can make their limited numbers matter a lot less. Lesson 3. The justice system operates with ethos that are, and at a pace that do not reflect the fragility of the situation and the urgency to demonstrate that the rule of law is meaningful. Prosecutions take too long, so long that many citizens assume that the criminals have long been released, encouraging criminal conduct and raising the dangerous appeal of illegal self-help. The fourth lesson we learned, particularly at the subnational levels, is that the states and local governments have limited hard power, but considerable options and scope for the exercise of soft power, which require for its effectiveness the looming shadow of credible coercive power. By this I mean, unless people understand that there is a strong federal government with enforcement behind this soft power, the soft power will not be exercised with success. Lesson number 5. is that the notions of a common humanity, not to talk of a common citizenship, are not as widely or deeply shared as it would appear. Identity politics holds sway. This reflects the absence of an elite consensus about who we are and how we should live together. But we can overcome these debilitations. Nigeria is not the only diverse country in the world. Neither are we the only federation. We are not the only country cobbled together by accidents of history. We are more integrated than we think, and there are many shared stories of triumph and tragedy. There are fault lines, but we can be rational about managing and navigating them. We can be conscious and deliberate about overcoming some of them while rendering those that remain less toxic. In Kaduna State, where we have 54 ethnic groups, we are implementing a project that conceives livestock production as a viable business rather than as a culture. We are working with a global dairy agent, Ala of Denmark, to deliver a project that sedentarizes herders in a community with roads, veterinary clinics, schools, and health facilities. Ala of Denmark is the commercial and technical manager of this project, called the Mao Milk Project, based in one of our 14 grazing reserves located in Kubau local government area. This project would deliver better life chances for the herders. 1,000 families will be initially resettled, create new businesses, and remove a perennial source of conflict. We hope to replicate this project across more of the grazing reserves in our state. In my view, we must approach organizing our country as a deliberate task, beginning with a collective decision regarding what sort of society we intend to be and the means of attaining it. That collective decision manifests in elite consensus, and it would include an understanding of the medley of measures required to make it happen. It may involve a set of drastic actions to signal a firm direction and some more medium to long-term measures that require patient nurturing. Based on elite consensus managed under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping, China went in 40 years from poverty to near first world status, lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty and making the country the second largest economy in the world. Nigeria does not have to remain mired in identity bind. Rather than leaving its people more to the past, we can create a shared vision of a new future. We require an elite consensus that to take the poison out of identity politics and emphasize personal qualities, including competence, application, and responsibility. We must be pragmatic in economic and political choices, choosing what is efficient above what is popular, caring more for results than the drama of ethno-religious entrepreneurs. Elite consensus must include agreement on at least 4 things, and I'll list them very quickly. 1, commitment to the rule of law and quick dispensation of justice. Number 2, common citizenship and respect for residency rights. Number 3, meritocracy and equal opportunity for all. Number 4, prioritization of human development. Number 5, respect for diversity and protecting of citizenship rights guaranteed by the Constitution. And finally, the immediate devolution of powers to return the nation to the true federation of our founding fathers. The APC Committee on True Federalism proposed significant devolution of powers between the national government and the 36 states. We recommended that about 10 items be transferred from the exclusive to the concurrent list and therefore fall under the control of both the states and the federal government. I will dwell on 3 of the issues that I believe are critical to the immediate needs of the country to pull back from the brink. The first is the imperative for federal, state, and community policing. We do not have enough police. One centralized police for the country just has not worked. Secondly, we must amend the Constitution and relevant laws to vest control of oil and gas, mines and minerals other than offshore in the continental shelf and extended economic zone in the states that already have control over land under the Land Use Act, with royalties and taxes payable to the federal government and the federation account. And number 3, we must rectify the anomaly of a federation that has a more or less unitary judiciary. Ladies and gentlemen, I am firmly convinced that restructuring on the lines proposed by our committee is a nation-building opportunity. It would allow states to exercise consequential powers, assume more responsibilities, and control resources to enable them deliver better outcomes for those they govern. Let me conclude by saying that in addition to, and in line with the foregoing points, I will recommend the following immediate decisions and actions by the federal and state governments with the support of our civil society and all well-meaning Nigerians. I have 6 or 7 recommendations. The first recommendation is to implement the 3 key devolution proposals that I mentioned above. Give us state police now. Vest all minerals in the states now. And decentralize our judiciary now, not later. Number 2, let us be emphatic collectively about the right of every citizen to security, freedom of movement, and rights of residence, and that the choice of livelihood must conform to the laws of the land. Number 3, we must identify, focus, and deal decisively with all state and non-state actors engaged in conduct that amounts to challenging the supremacy of the Nigerian state and our constitution without ethnic profiling or discriminatory treatment. Number 4, we should provide immediate and enhanced funding to acquire advanced equipment, armament, and ordnance for the armed forces, police, security agencies, and paramilitary agencies by drawing down from the pool of various rainy day federation funds like the excess crude account, natural resource account, stabilization account, and so on, so that our security services will have the material to face the criminals that menace us. Number 5, implement the National Livestock Transformation Plan already produced 4 years ago to enable accelerated investment in modern animal husbandry, incorporating this rapid sedentarization of herders in non-locations. Number 6, the aggressive reduction of the cost of governance at federal, state, and local government levels through merger of ministries, departments, and agencies with similar mandates and functions, and a nationwide freeze on creation of any new administrative, regulatory, or executive bodies for the foreseeable future. We simply cannot afford it anymore. And number 7, we need to forge a national consensus now, not later, to collect more taxes at both federal and state levels for the governments to be viable. This means also we must stop pretending that the regulated rates of lending, interest rates, exchange rates, prices of petrol and electricity, as well as the salaries in the public sector are realistic, sustainable, and will lead us to the promised land. These are decisions for here and now. As leaders, our obligation is to turn Nigeria's moment of peril into a breakthrough moment. A time to stand together and drag the Nigerian state to modernity, imbued with a capacity to exercise robust control of security that is uncompromising in its prerogatives and has an ability to protect rights, lives, and livelihoods. Let us make a rational decision as a people that would be defined by what we achieve in common. I thank you for the opportunity, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Governor Rufai. It is not always easy to keep politicians to their allotted time, but these are important matters that require dealing with them sufficiently. And I will now call on Governor Fayemi of Ekiti State, who joins us as a ghost on Zoom to make his quick presentation.
Thank you, Dele, and I thank my fellow panelists and Radio Now for inviting me to this important discourse. It would have been easy for me, Dele, to just say that I concur completely with virtually everything that my brother has put forward, and I then just sit down and listen. But I also have an added obligation as the head of Nigerian governors to share with you our perspectives collectively on this issue, because this is something we've been grappling with for some time now. As Malam Nasir Rufai can attest to. Conflict is part of human existence, and Nigeria has clearly experienced its own cycle of conflict over its 6 decades of independence. However, the spate of violence and instability across our country in the last few years should certainly be a major cause for concern to not just government, citizens, stakeholders, as well as external interlocutors who desire the best for our country. While the violent conflicts take different forms and trajectories across the country's 6 geopolitical zones, their root causes are generally located in layers of deep-seated political, economic, social, and environmental challenges that have been allowed to fester for so long, to the extent that they are now able to disrupt livelihoods, cause unprecedented destruction of public and private property, and lead to unnecessary death. Given this worrisome state, whether it is insurgency in the Northeast or terrorism, farmer-herder conflicts in the North Central, banditry in the Northwest, kidnapping in the Southwest and Southeast, and of course all over the country, youth restiveness across the country that led to NSAS that we all unfortunately encountered in October. Militancy, sea piracy in the South-South. The common thread is that we are now in a season of anomie in our country. And your title for this event is very fitting. We have to pull Nigeria from the brink. And there's no question that in order to be able to do this, we certainly require elite consensus, as Malam Nasir El-Rufai just highlighted. Because when you review our interventions over the past decade or more, what is clear is that there are gaps in our security management system. There's an over-reliance on ad hoc, reactive, and hard security as against proactive, development-oriented, and human security response. Our security management strategy lacks a holistic and responsive peace and security architecture, which in turn makes states to put in place self-help security arrangements such as Amotekun, Hisba, and a whole range of them that we have seen spring up in states. There's also an absence of a comprehensive approach that deals with the root causes and drivers of conflict and insecurity, partly because government has always considered security challenges evolutionary rather than a permanently existential challenge. And a lack of coherent peace and security policy framework and structure, and an inadequate inter-agency synergy between and among security agencies as they work at cross purposes and undermine themselves. This is a common story we hear from the Boko Haram insurgency infested territory amongst our various services. And of course, there is a proliferation and lack of synergy between and among locally grown and embedded security networks, vigilantes, vis-a-vis the state security. And all of this has also been bedeviled by poor media engagement between government and the media, and a negative public perception of government and whatever it's doing in order to curb all of these challenges. Malam Nasir Rufai has highlighted constitutional and structural issues that we need to deal with, and As I said earlier, I wholeheartedly agree with him on those issues that he has highlighted. But I think for us, at the level of the governors, we have also been dealing with immediate issues that go beyond the generic points that have been made eloquently by Madam Nasira Rufai. When you focus on the recent challenges, be they banditry, insurgency, or most recently the harder farmer conflict that we have experienced in the Southwest, what is clear is that naturally victims are almost always emotional about issues of this nature. When you have lost somebody or you know someone who has lost someone, it's no use telling the person to be rational about the ill that has befallen them and the bereavement they've suffered. The truth of the matter is that we also need compassionate leadership in order to help deal with these issues, in addition to all the substantive things we need to deal with. But most importantly, we need to make a distinction between criminality and race bigotry. Because when people have committed crimes, what victims are most interested in is that they're brought to book and brought to book swiftly. And we have been significantly lacking in this area, either due to failure of intelligence or due to failure of investigative capacity. And Madam Rufai referred to access to justice, swift access to justice in order to deal with this. What has led to ethnic profiling more than anything else is that we haven't done enough to bring to book those who have been responsible for crime and criminal acts in our country. And we must do everything within our powers, particularly in empowering our security institutions to do more in bringing to book those purveyors of violence, those who have been responsible for crime and criminality in our country. But I think it's important that we must not risk, in the process of doing that, tarring every person who belongs to the community of a particular criminal with the same brush. And we've seen a lot of that recently in our country. I believe, and it is a position that has been clearly enunciated by all governors, that we do not subscribe to ethnic profiling. We believe that criminals are bound all over our country. They come from virtually all ethnicities. What is important is that we isolate the particular criminals without dismissing the sociological underpinnings of crime. There are factors that are responsible for people getting into crime, and we can have a debate about the root causes of crime, which include poverty, unemployment, gross inequality in our society, and clearly weak governance arrangement that has been unable to provide all of the things that people expect from those they've elected into office. Having said all of this, it is absolutely important that we eschew ethnic profiling. And when we've seen what has happened in other parts of the world, the Jews in Germany, the blacks in America, the Tutsis in Rwanda, it is absolutely important that if we're to pull back from the brink, we must not do anything to exacerbate what is already a very problematic situation that we have found ourselves in. And one of the ways in which we must also work hard to address this is to ensure that government at all times engage with stakeholders of all hues, regardless of where they come from, how they have found themselves here, what they're doing. As long as they are law-abiding, we need to engage them, feel their pain, and find out precisely what the issues that will constitute early warning and conflict prevention systems are at all levels to enable us to track conflict threats and trigger early response, by both formal security and informal arrangements. I think one other element which has not come up, but which I think we need to address in pulling back from the brink, and we also saw the impact of this in the genocide in Rwanda, is the use to which or abuse to which the media could be put, particularly social media. A lot of the videos we have seen in the last few days in relation to what happened in Shasha in Oyo State or in Ogun State are fake videos. Some of them are not even videos relating to issues that happened in Nigeria. They are external videos. And what this has caused or contributed to is something we need to pay particular attention. And those professionals in the media space and all of us who use media instruments must exercise tremendous restraint in utilizing these tools so that they don't become agents of insecurity themselves, rather than instruments to curb violence. But another issue for us as governors is the need to pay more attention to forests. Forests have become a menace, yet we need to treat forests as a priority governance, security, environmental, and developmental concern, because that's what they've been to us in the past. But you now find a collusion between loggers and bandits, and even in some cases, the communities that reside legitimately within some forest areas, which have turned this forest into a huge menace and a space for criminal elements to perpetrate all the horrible things that they're doing. So we need a security, a forest management framework that would enable us to ensure that those who don't have business in the forest must leave the forest. We used to have forest rangers when we were young, and these forest rangers were very effective. They were conservators of the forest. But in the period that seen the rise of climate change problematic, this is not something that we've paid attention to yet. It is something we must pay significant attention to. Governors are also very committed, just as Malam Nasir Rufai has said, to the need to modernize grazing practices. And we have a national livestock transformation plan that we believe should be fully implemented now in order to promote ranching and modern livestock management practices. Just as what Malam Nasir has described that Kaduna State is doing with ALA, Ekiti State is undertaking a similar initiative with Promasido, and we've just brought in some 500 heads of cattle from the United States to inseminate our local breeds in our Ikunderi farm, and practicing sedentary ranching and grazing practice in a way that we can gradually introduce to our herders, regardless of where they may come from.
Sedentary is the word.
Sedentary,
Thank you, Governor.
Let me stop there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Senator Abaribe, I'm hoping you will bring a somewhat different perspective to some of the tenor and direction of the conversation so far as a leader of the Senate.
My fellow panelists and Nigerians, I want to show my deep appreciation to be here. We are here specifically to talk about how to pull us back from the brink. And so, when I was contacted, I also asked a question. Do you really want us to talk about the problems, or do we come and paper everything over as usual and go away and the problem continues? Because I don't think that there's anything new we're going to say. that has not been said. What I think is that everything has been said, all the proposals have been given, but no one wants to have the will to be able to do what is necessary. I want to thank Governor Rufai for all the things he has said. You know, these are wonderful things and the way that you're going about it. But I want to actually say, if we want to have a conversation, can we look at certain questions and ask ourselves those questions? Since this is the first set of the discussions we are going to either today or maybe in another discussion, we can ask ourselves one question. And the first one is, why now? What is it that has led us to this point in just a few years? And it seems like the whole of Nigeria is burning. There must be a way for us to try to find out why? Because it wasn't like this. And all of a sudden we see this. Secondly, there's been so much talk about profiling. And I agree with it. And I would like us to also have a conversation along that line. If a header is carrying an AK-47 and a criminal is carrying an AK-47 and both of them are in the same place, how do you differentiate them? Because it is necessary for us to be able to draw lines somewhere. If we are looking at that, we should also look at something else. If, like Governor Rufai has said, the police, the military, and all that, they don't seem to be enough. But I don't think that that is only the problem. And I can tell you, as the minority leader, I get people who call me from our place to say, this has happened here. These people have come and done this. And we have reported to the police. And when we report, we become the victims. They instead turn around to arrest us. So, what type of training do we give to our law enforcement agencies so that they can differentiate between the genuine person who has a problem and somebody who they say is profiling a set of people? Now, we can also go ahead to ask another question. And that is it possible for Nigerians to ignore the matter of attachment to land? Because that is very critical for us to have this conversation. If somebody, I think I read somewhere that close to 80% of Nigeria's land is in the 19 states of the North. About 22% or so is in the 18 states of the South. And somebody in a forest in the South is being told to leave his land in order to be alive so that another person can stay there. How do you think the person will feel? And I think Governor Fayemi said that victims need to be treated with some compassion. And I think that those are the kind of questions that I think we need to try. And I think the panelists, maybe you will all look at it. There is something that is going on. And I think Governor Fayemi and Governor Rufai, I need to let you know, from Ruga to the Waterways Bill to the National Livestock Transformation Plan, all the way to what the Minister of Justice suggested, a commission for heads. I don't know what the commission is for, but at the root of it, what Nigerians see is a grab for land. So we must deal with the land problem and how people are attached to it. That must be a conversation that we must have. And I joined Governor Rufai to agree that if there is no quick access to justice, there's absolutely no way people who are aggrieved will feel that something has been done for them. There must be that. But on the basis of that, let me make my final submission so that you know that I won't take so much of your time. And that is that if you don't make something as the base of anything, whatever you put on top of it will collapse. Governor Rufai has said it. The base is fairness and justice. You must treat everybody equally. Once you do that, then people will buy into your solutions. And when they buy into your solutions, then you can continue to have a viable country. I want to stop there because I think we're going for a break.
Thank you very much, Senator. We will now take a short break, and when we come back, we will go to panelists for quick responses, and then we'll have a more generalized conversation. We'll be back. Okay, welcome back. Now we go to members of our panel who have been pulled together to respond in roughly 3 minutes or so each to some of the comments that have been made by our speakers, as well as to offer some fresh insights. We will start with Sam Adeyemi, the founder of the Daystar Christian Center, who joins us via Zoom. Sam? We can't hear you, Sam.
About that.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you very much.
Excellent.
Moderator, my fellow panelists, and all Nigerians. I want to say that it's just definitely appropriate that we are discussing at this time. And my major observation here is that I am impressed by the solutions proffered. First, the analysis of the problem, and the solutions proffered by their governors, especially. Governor Rufai did so well in analyzing the issues and proffering solutions. Governor Fayemi, also being a security expert, has analyzed the issues, even addressed the root causes, of these conflicts, and then proffered solutions. And my view would be to ask, since we know, just like Senator Abaribe said, since we know what the issues are, we have ideas about the solutions. Why are we still here? Why did we even get here in the first place? When I want to speak as a citizen, a Nigerian citizen, first, it's very comforting to know that our leaders in government are actually this smart, okay? That they know what the issues are, and they're actually discussing the potential solutions. My puzzle would be, so exactly why are we not creating the solutions? We don't expect our leaders to complain to us. We expect leadership to solve problems. Now, my hypothesis would be that it is not everyone in government, both at the federal, state, and local levels, that is on the same page with our leaders that are speaking with us here today. We citizens would like to know what the hindrances are, what the issues are. Because I have a feeling that we have a structure of leadership in our culture that does not put much premium on citizens. Yet, this is supposed to be a democracy. Unfortunately, it's a cultural issue. So it's not only about the people in political office, it's also about us citizens. That whenever we have issues to resolve, when we say our leaders, we keep referring to the people in government, but this is a democracy. The citizens actually have power. Sometimes I address national issues on social media. People say, you need to speak truth to power. And I feel like then talking to citizens because the power is with the citizen. But there's a disconnect somewhere. There's a disconnect. And Governor Fayemi did mention it, that there's a need, for consultation. There's a need for that connection between leaders in government and citizens, because I feel that it is the people that have the citizens behind them that really will be able to push through ideas to the point of execution. I think some of our leaders in government are finding it very difficult to push through some of the brilliant ideas that they have, and they need to let us know what is really going on, because the elite class has to realize it's on the cusp of history. Africa has to realize its potential now. And whatever it is we're hiding will still come out later in the history books. We need to play our roles well now. We need to know what the real issues are and why we have a government filled with brilliant people and it seems to be fumbling. Some citizens assume the people in government know nothing. Now we know they do. But perhaps it's that there are conflicting ideas there in government and the people with the best ideas are not being able to push their ideas through.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. So that's an important point to make about the gap between very good ideas and a clear incapacity to carry them out. And I wonder what you think of that. Abubakar Suleiman is the chief executive of Sterling Bank and joins our panel today. Would you care to respond to that and then add some other thoughts you may have?
Okay. Thank you. I guess I will start by saying that it takes centuries for nations to form. And when nations are formed, it's okay to leave governance to those who are elected to do so. But in the process of the formation of nations, I think we all need to be involved in nation building. So for those of my friends who wanted to know why I am on the stage here with the excellencies, it's because we're in the state of nation building. And nation building is not a political affair. It is for all of us. That said, it also links directly to the reason why there is such a gap between the ideas that we have and the execution of it. Step one is that while the politicians and our excellencies may have had the opportunity to look at the problem critically, look at the actual data, and arrive at this conclusion, most of us citizens have not done that. We actually operate on the concept of headlines. And once the headline says something, we take it on. The consequences of that is that we have also not lined up behind the right ideas in government. We are therefore spread ourselves thin. We have allowed ourselves to follow either the profiling or the fake news or the misconception because we also lack data. So for nation building, I think I'm calling on everyone that we all need to be involved as if we're all politicians, because the truth is that we are at this point. Regarding how we can move from ideas to execution, let's not forget that this is all economics. At the root cause of all of the problem we face today is unemployment. It is about poverty. It's about people not having enough. And that cannot be done by government. In my view, government needs to take more of its resources and focus its attention on those who are creating destruction and give more room to those who are in the production process. Right now, there is an over-regulation of people who are trying to create employment and create jobs and an under-regulation of those who are in the destruction business. I would sum that up by saying there is also a need for a consensus between those of us in the private sector and those that we have elected to govern us. And at the heart of that consensus is that you need to build sectors before you regulate them, not regulate what does not exist. I will stop at this point and let my other guys continue.
Thank you very much, Abubakar. So, Bamidele Ademola Olateju, who joins us, a journalist, please share some of your own thoughts regarding how to first pull us back from the brink and then to build forward a place that is more fit for human habitation.
I want to thank Radio Now for inviting me here. And
all protocols observed.
Okay. And thank you, Malam Nasir, for a very robust submission, and to Dr. Fayemi too. Well, why are we here? We want to have frank conversations. To me, there are questions to ask, but first of all, Professor Wole Soyinka has given a single sentence of how this thing can stop right now. And it's for President Muhammadu Buhari to say, stop. We should be realistic. We should say the truth.
Can you explain that? What do you mean by that?
What I mean is, for him to come out, address the nation, make a pronouncement that I do not support, even though I'm Fulani, because this problem did not begin with him, but it has exacerbated when he became our president. The first step is to say, stop. And these are the steps to take. If you find anybody doing this, any Fulani carrying AK-47, that person should be arrested. 1. 2, Nigeria has an elite problem because the elite are not invested in this country. Who owns the cows? In the Southwest, I know that it is the elite who own the cows. If you tell me, Etiala, to submit the names of those who own cows in the Southwest, you will be shocked. Again, another question we can ask, how much is an AK-47? Can a herder get an AK-47, afford one. Okay, these herders are being paid minimum wage. Who arms them? The elite. Who releases them when they are caught? Who calls the police station, the DPO, the judges? The elite. Are we now afraid of our elite? Are they now more powerful than the state? They are not, because the state has yielded the monopoly of violence. It's only the state, the sovereign state, that owns the monopoly of violence. Until we restructure our security architecture to be responsible, to be accountable, we are not going anywhere. And I want to ask, if the governors are this helpless, what shall we do? Because the governors do not control an army. They do not control the police. If Malam Nasir calls the police commissioner in his state, and the IG says he should not answer, he will not answer. That is the truth. So we need something like a National Guard. We need state police. And we need to stop having a disastrous relationship between actions and consequences. A nation where actions do not have consequences devolves into chaos. So I would like to stop there and let the conversation continue.
Thank you, Bamidele. So, Choma, what are your thoughts? I was struck by one thing particular that Bamidele just said now, which was along the lines of elite collusion in our problems, that these problems did not create themselves and that most of the creating is not done by the poor people. What is your own thought as to whether this is how we find ourselves, and what could be the interests of sections of the elite in creating such mayhem as we are now experiencing in our country, assuming that she has a point?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here today. To respond directly to your question, I think that people profit from chaos, and that's exactly what's going on in Nigeria today. There are too many people profiting from chaos. There are too many people profiting from the anarchy that's currently going on in a number of places. That's a simple answer. The second thing I want to say here today is a quick response to what the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, His Excellency Governor Fayemi, said earlier. He said something about the NSAS movement being born out of youth restiveness. Quick response to that is that NSAS was young people simply saying, stop killing us. I think we must ensure that we do not allow anything else stand as far as NSAS is concerned. It was young people across the country in one voice saying, we want extrajudicial killings to stop. And the poor handling and insincerity of the response that we saw, coupled with the infiltration of the protests by hired mercenaries, led to the carnage that we saw around the country. The other thing I want to say, and I'm grateful that we have His Excellency Malam Nasir El Rufai and the chairman of the Governors Forum here, is that in June of 2020, the entire country, starting from federal to legislative to state governments, declared the state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing black today, standing with Ochanya in Benue, Barakat in Ibadan, standing with Vera in Benin, whose death, whose horrific rape and murder actually led to us convening the state of emergency GBV movement in June of 2020. 9 months after everyone in this country declared a state of emergency, after the interministerial committee was formed, what are the structural, cohesive, and sustained responses to sexual and gender-based violence in the country? If we have states where governors are sending survivors of gender-based violence back to their abusers. If we have a nation state where how many months after the very person that sparked all of the protests across the country, we still don't have justice for her. So that's a question to the governors here present. And this is despite the fact that within the two states here, so Kaduna and Ekiti, there have been laudable strides as far as response to sexual and gender-based violence is concerned. But if we have 2 states out of 36, or 3 or 4 or 5, we're still doing very poorly. If you look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, how many states have passed it till today? Look at the Child's Rights Act of 2003, 17 plus years. How many states have passed it? Nigeria currently has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. And we still can't pass a bill that sends kids to school? So when we think about why are we here? First of all, people aren't in school. They are not restive. They are uneducated, without a means to fend for themselves, without a means to feed themselves or cater to their families. And our population is expanding and exploding. So what do they try to do? Everyone's trying to survive. The final thing I'm going to say, how do we pull ourselves back from the brink? We need to build 2 things. 1, investment in the idea of Nigeria. Investment in the idea of the country, investment in the geopolitical idea that Nigeria is. We also need to build investment in our immediate environment. For instance, love your neighbor as yourself, regardless of who your neighbor is. But we won't do that if we don't trust that our government is loving us as well. And quite frankly, as a young Nigerian today, I don't feel loved by this government. I don't feel that in the midst of a pandemic, we were forced to go out to queue to register for NIN. And the incoherence of that, today go out, tomorrow come back, tomorrow there's a deadline, tomorrow there's no deadline, tomorrow we're going to use it for BVN, tomorrow we're going to use it for election registration. It was chaotic. That's not love. So we must build investment in citizens. This government must show us that they care about us. This government must show us that they love us. This government must show that we are the people that put them there. And I'm very grateful for Pastor Sam Adeyemi, and I do follow his teachings on social media, especially about nationhood and especially about citizen building. We must build this country together, but I can't outsource leadership to the person I elected to lead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I allow the senator and the governors to respond to some of the grenades that have been rolled with the pins pulled out in your direction, I wanted to go back to Sam, to a point he made earlier, which was around this gap, this seeming incapacity. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that people who seem to know what we should do fail to stand up as leaders and act? Will the real leaders please stand up? Sam?
Thank you very much, Dele. Well, the basic thing here is that when you look from a leadership standpoint, these crises we're going through are predictable. I had said to the people that listened to me years ago that Nigeria would go from crisis to crisis to crisis. Why? Because we have a culture basically that is not aligned with principles. We're dealing with cultural issues, deep issues, mindsets, beliefs, values that eventually influence behavior. Okay, so the leadership culture itself has a big problem because there's a wide gap between the leader and the led. It's a cultural problem. The leader is very powerful. The led, powerless. Okay? It's a cultural thing. So leadership requires change. That's the essence. If you're not taking me from A to B, you're not leading me. If we stand on the same spot for 12 hours, you're standing in front of me for 12 hours, then they ask you, what are you doing to him? You say, I'm leading him. That's not true. You're actually obstructing my progress. We need to move forward, okay? And what I'm saying is there are people in government that know this. They know what we are supposed to do. Okay, let me be honest. I have friends in government, okay? So, and they tell me when they say vision, because basically we should be discussing Nigeria's development. Nigeria needs to move into the 21st century and as fast as possible. Abubakar mentioned it. This whole thing is about the economy. If you have any problem in Nigeria that is not tractable, Somebody's making money from it. Okay, and Chema said as much. Somebody's making money. Boko Haram people are making money. Banditry is about money making. Kidnappings is about making money. Why don't we then create a country where people can make money legitimately? Basic. Once you begin to discuss that idea with Nigerians, a vision will give people hope. Presently, there's despair. People can't see any way forward. So what's the discussion right now amongst young Nigerians? This huge population that we have of young Nigerians. It is, look, let's everybody go their way. Let's break it down. The smart people know that will not solve the problem. Okay?
Thank you.
South Sudan broke away from North Sudan, and then South Sudan went into a war. Breaking away is not the issue. The restructuring is empowering the citizen. But I am saying there are brilliant people in government. They're finding it difficult to push their ideas. They need to tell us why. This is my suggestion to them.
Yes.
The elite class, okay, the elite class is speaking to itself. It's not speaking to the citizens in a way that is understandable.
Right.
And the elite class thinks that the only way it can maintain relevance is by negotiating within the elite class.
Yes. Thank you.
That won't work anymore. Darren Acemoglu and James Robinson said it in the book, Why Nations Fail. The elite class in almost every country uses political power to channel economic resources to benefit itself. And it takes force to change it. That was how Europe changed. And we don't need to wait until the country breaks down before we change that equation. I'm asking the people in the elite class to speak up, factor us citizens into this discussion so we understand what is going on. We back ideas, not just personalities. We need to shift the mindset of the average Nigerian. Education is important. The school system is broken down. Informal education is necessary. We need to hear some things over and over and over and over. I asked a question on Twitter. How often should the president of Nigeria address the country? And there were different ideas going on. We must not underestimate the impact of speaking to citizens. We can't share money out to all of them, but once we shift their mindsets, their value system, they value honesty, and they know that with a good justice system, if they work hard, they will make the money. If the government speaks to them, they can trust the government, that the government will not lie to them. Once that trust is there, people are the ones that will create the wealth that even government will spend. We need our elite class to tell us how we can move the country forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. I appreciate that. I do want us to sort of focus on some of the few things that we've been discussing in the past hour or so that you all say you agree on. Fayemi mentioned that he agreed with what Nasir El-Rufai said about how to devolve power quickly to the state so we can fight insecurity, increase economic activity, and guarantee justice to people in a timely way. Those are three concrete things. We have governors here. We have a leader of the Senate here. And I do not see a roadmap. What is that roadmap? Because after this year, this country is going to grind to a halt. And you are all going to just be campaigning to be re-elected or to get other people in power. How do we get from point A to point B? Or have we become so catastrophically governed that we're no longer able to see our way clear of how to get somewhere that we all agree is where we should be? Who wants to go first on that one?
Attempt. And then my chairman, Governor Fayemi, can come in. First, I want to appreciate all the comments. Pastor Adeyemi, very insightful, you know. I don't know how come I have not been following you. I will start. You asked a question, and I will give you an answer. We are governors. There are 36 of us, maybe 36 and a half, if you count the governor of FCT as sort of governor. And we can only be held fully accountable for our states Chioma has pointed out that Child Rights Act, Violence Against Persons Acts have all been domesticated in Ekiti and Kaduna states. That's all we can do. Implementing the act at the national level, the Cybercrime Act, which is a solution to all the fake news, is only the Federal Attorney General that can initiate prosecution under the Cybercrime Act. There are certain things governors cannot do. Some of them we've alluded to by saying we don't control security agencies. So you're a chief security officer, but you can call the CP, and if the IG says, don't talk to him, that's it. In 5.5 years as governor of Kaduna State, I've had 8 commissioners of police. 8. They are just posted. They spent 7-8 months, another one on average, do the math. 8 commissioners of police that have virtually no say in their posting and so on and so forth. How can you have security management if you change your management, the frontline chief of security every 8 months on average? So I think when people talk of government, they forget that there are several governments in Nigeria, and it is important to locate responsibility where it is. As state governors, we are responsible mostly for education, for healthcare, for social development. We have a lot to do there. So when education fails, no point blaming President Buhari. When healthcare fails at the primary and secondary level, there is no point talking to the president. It's us as governors. But having said that, there are some things that are beyond us. I have mentioned 3. We want state police. Only the National Assembly can give us state police. There is nothing the governors can do. And these senators and House of Reps members were elected from states. Many of them got elected with our help and support. But when they go to Abuja, they can grow large head and will not barb their hair for 2 years, and they start thinking something else. I had one like that. I got him out. Okay? So there are some things, minerals and petroleum to be vested in states. Only the National Assembly can amend the Constitution, and then the state assemblies can support it. And the National Assembly will do so only if civil society, the media, come out and say, these proposals will make Nigeria better. If citizens come out and say, this will make Nigeria better. We want states to have more responsibility so that we can be held more accountable. This is what is contained in the APC Committee on True Federalism. And I just took 3 examples here. And the moderator is right. The reason why I said we need state police now, we need a decentralized judiciary now, we need the vesting of mines, minerals, and oil in states now, is because if we don't do it this year, next year, everything will be politicized. I hope I have answered your question about smart people in government and the disconnect with getting things done. Our system of checks and balances between executive, judiciary, legislature, and several tiers of government sometimes confuses people into thinking there is one government. There isn't. When we complain about security architecture, that is clearly the federal government's responsibility to fix. We can, as governors or states, support. For instance, 2 or 3 years ago, the Nigerian Governors Forum took the decision to take $1 billion from the excess crude account, which we own about 60 to 70%, to give to the Nigerian military so that they buy armaments and security forces. We initiated it as states because we are at the receiving end of these security failures. So there are some things we can do, but there are some things that are beyond us. But I believe that unless we stop the blame or looking for who to blame, everyone has a grudge, everyone can say this or that. This is the time, this is the moment everyone in Nigeria feels this sense of crisis, which I think is an opportunity to do these things so that Nigeria can be structured better and we can begin to pass responsibility down and hold people accountable, no confusion. And then perhaps we will attract some of the people sitting here into politics and government, because that's another fundamental problem. It's easy to sit aside and say government should do this, government should do that. When the best people are not in politics, the best people are not in government, you'll continue to have suboptimal outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator, how realistic is it to make these specific 3 changes between now and the end of this year? Is the Senate, is the National Assembly structured in a way that it can actually do anything of value?
Yes, I can tell you for a fact that sometime in 2000 and I think it was 9 or 10, when we had the issue of Goodluck Jonathan and the doctrine of necessity, the Governors Forum, all of them came and met with the Senate and said, this is how we need to resolve this issue. It didn't take a week. We passed that law, an amendment of the Constitution. So I think that is possible. Governor Fayemi can come with Governor Rufai with his report and meet with the Senate, because we're in the process of doing the constitutional amendment. I said, these are the quick wins that we can do. It's not a difficult thing at all. It's just that, well, governors and the presidency, what we see is a KBC democracy, where the man on top, it's only what he says that will happen. Governor Rufai has said, okay, let us all work together. We are very, very ready to do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Governor Fayemi, I wanted you to, are you still with us? I wanted you to jump back in about a particular comment you made regarding empathy for victims and so on. But as an extension of that, there also seems to me, including what I'm hearing on this panel and what I've heard elsewhere, the tendency for us to nurse our own grievances jealously so that it stops us from being able to work in concert with others to solve problems in a concrete way. How do we get beyond everybody's victimhood being nursed with great jealousy?
Thank you, Dele. Before I go into that, I would crave your indulgence. Just allow me a quick response to my brother, distinguished Senator Abaribe. The request he just made, we actually did. I went with Malam Nasriel Rufai and 12 of our governors to meet principal officers in the Senate to present that report, the APC Constitutional Reform Report, to the leadership in Senate. So I would expect that this has now been conveyed to the Senate Committee on Constitutional Reform. You were not there that day, but we did what you are just requesting. So the ball is in your court. Governor Rufai is totally right. We can pass laws. We can elect you and send you there, but it's your sole prerogative to pass laws on behalf of all of us. And I'm sure these are issues that you are also personally interested in. I happen to know that. So it shouldn't be difficult for you to work with those who believe in what that committee has come out with. But going back to, let me also give a quick response to something that Chioma said. Chioma, my own dictionary meaning of restiveness, and I quickly did a check when you spoke, simply says unable to remain still or silent, especially because of boredom or dissatisfaction characterized by impatience or absence of calm. You are addressing what was responsible for that absence of calm in our youth. that is police brutality in the case of the October events. But youth restiveness cuts across. And there can be no doubt that it's one of the things we have to respond to. We can debate what's responsible for youth restiveness, but the fact that we have youth restiveness is not something debatable in my view. But going to the issue of empathy, sir, I think there is no question that those of us in public office and in authority have to be compassionate in the way we conduct ourselves. And there's no doubt that a lot of people have been victims of crime of all sorts, of bad governance, of lack of accountability. And it behoves us, in addition to fixing those problems, to also extend a compassionate hand to such people. That's why over the last year, when we have these unfortunate incidents, it's a golden rule in the Nigerian Governors Forum that I had to go to the state, or I send a delegation to the state where we've had this problem, be it Borno or Zamfara or Oyo or Ogun State, and to even donate a token to address that particular issue that has caused a disaffection or unhappiness amongst the citizens. So really, I think that is just a gesture of that speaks to our values as a people. It's not a favor being done to the victim, but it is a duty that we owe ourselves to be compassionate and to be supportive to those who have been hard done by our society. But there are a couple of other issues that have come up that I also think I should respond to. Chuma highlighted the point about gender-based violence and the state of emergency that we declared on June 10, 2020. You're absolutely right. That problem has not disappeared. We're still grappling with gender-based violence, with children out of school, with general human rights violations. But I can tell you that the fact that we succeeded in even declaring that state of emergency, which has a whole range of things to it, is not just legislation. Legislation is one of the specific issues that we wanted to deal with, where there are gaps, where there are no existing laws. And we're making progress. It may not be fast enough, but we are making some progress. But there are other elements to it. For example, empowering the women themselves or victims generally. We are also insisting on making sure that girls return to schools, even when they are pregnant.
Thank you, Governor.
There are a whole range of things that we're doing. Sexual assault referral centers are springing up all over the country.
Thank you.
We have shelters springing up all over the country. So there is some progress. And I would like to just urge, moderator, we're right to be impatient, but we must never let the perfect become the enemy of the good. There is some good taking place in some parts, but we need to pull everything together for our country to be what we want it to be.
So I want to ask all of you one final question before we open it up to our audience to be able to ask whatever is on their minds of you eminent leaders who are governing us in a way that has not inspired us much so far, given the results, whether or not it is actually your fault. And that question is this: do you have the sense that the current political structures that we have, these two parties, the ruling party and the opposition, are they structured in a way that they can lead to a better leadership outcome for us in 2 years' time? Or are we going to just look for the worst amongst us, the least threatening, and then install them again and we go into another cycle of failure? Are you structured in any way to do that? Was Abubakar, were you trying to tackle this? Yeah?
It's absolutely a question for the Excellency.
Senator, you can go.
Let me say one thing that is a fact that we cannot run away from. Leadership recruitment is a big problem. And the big problem that comes from leadership recruitment is the fact. And Governor Rufai has also highlighted it in his submission, in which he said we need to move away from every other thing and start to think about meritocracy. That's just it. Once you don't have the right person, you will continue to have these problems. Unfortunately.
I think the Americans agree with you.
Well, unfortunately, what we have is one person in office trying to bring in somebody that he is comfortable with, not who we do the work, and we all suffer from it.
Thank you. Governor Rufai.
Mr. Moderator, you know, political parties are organizations. And depending on the leadership and membership of the organization, the party will be functional or dysfunctional. I am of the view that the reason why we have the sort of parties we have now in this republic, the Fourth Republic, which essentially are platforms rather than ideologically consistent or, kind of organization, was the nature of the emergence of the Fourth Republic and what happened before. Many people in 1998 did not believe that after the death of late General Abacha, the military would leave. This is because of the endless transition programs that the country went through. And maybe by then, the better people, the best politicians, the more honest politicians got exhausted and dropped by the wayside. So in 1999, I was in Abdul Salam's government. I was part of the designers of the transition. One of the decisions General Abdul Salam took was to cancel all the Abacha parties and start a new process, just to give some confidence that, we are going to hand over, we'll leave in 1 year max, and so on. But I think the best people in Nigeria, the professionals, the bright guys, those with a public service orientation, those that really believe that politics is about service, not politics being about personal interest, kept away. Now, once those first set of governors and others went in, it is very difficult to dislodge them. I am of the view that these two parties, in spite of all the nightmare scenarios, would survive. I think the Nigerian elites are very good at negotiating a truce. But the only way the parties will change is back to what I said earlier and what I've always said before, and echoes the words of Pastor Adeyemi. Good people must come into politics. Good people must offer themselves for public service and suffer the indignities that we all suffer. We get abused every day, we get insulted, we get accused, but we must have our best people in public service. We must have our best people in politics. We should not have them in banks, in telecoms companies, in oil companies, and in civil society protesting. Protesting will take you nowhere unless you have a seat at the table. And the most important table is that political table. I got into government the technocratic way. I didn't go into government and get to be appointed minister because of politics. I was appointed because the president liked me and thought I could do the job. But I realized after that politics trumps everything. So my call to Nigerians is, if you want to see better governance, be part of the selection process of those that offer themselves for public service and politics. And the only way to do so is to join political parties and be active and influence the leadership that emerges in the political parties, which usually influences the leadership those that are offered for election. There is no other way. There is no shortcut to it. And I appeal to young Nigerians, educated Nigerians, comfortable Nigerians, because public service pay is very poor. So comfortable Nigerians should leave what they are doing. The pastors and imams that have made money, the bankers, the telecoms guys, leave that thing, come and make Nigeria work, because if it doesn't work, you will not sleep at night no matter how much money you make. So I believe that we can change these parties. I believe that there is hope. I believe that if we have more and more young people, and we have 5 million of them attaining the age of 18 every year, they can come and overwhelm the parties and chase out the old men like me and take over. But they must come. They cannot stand on the sidelines and keep criticizing. Any fool can criticize. Solutions are what this country needs, and you can only propose these solutions, fight for them if you're in the system.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Choma, you wanted to make it quick?
Yes, and I'll keep it very quick. The political climate of Nigeria as it is presently constituted actually prohibits the entry of young people. Take you down history lane. 2018, the Not Too Young to Run bill was passed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. What a lot of people don't know was that there were 3 components to that bill, which became an act. The first of them was the reduction in age. The second was a reduction in campaign spending, putting a cap on election spending. Of course, that was thrown out. The third of them was independent candidacy, and that was thrown out. Off the passage of that bill, young people came out in droves, joined political parties. The Not Too Young to Run movement engaged with political parties from APC to PDP to all the other parties in the country, speaking with them about things like internal party democracy, ensuring that people with character, competence, and capacity rise to the top and vie for office. What happened? I personally know of a group of young women, 50 of them, who ran for office in this country in 2019. None of them won. Why? Some of them were substituted simply because they were women. And so when you talk about, people need to come into politics, we also need to think about, is the political climate welcoming of young people? Can they afford to be in politics? You talk about, Senator Abaribe mentioned something which I really liked, which was about intergenerational conversations and the recruitment of leadership. At the moment, what we see are politicians trying to perpetuate themselves. So it's more about perpetuity of power rather than, like has been mentioned earlier, ensuring that citizens get the leadership and the governance that they vote in. Okay. Governance is supposed to solve problems in this country. At the moment, it is solving some problems, and there are some bright lights, but there are more dim lights than there are bright lights.
Thank you very much. I'll turn over to some in our wider audience. Yemi Ademola has a question, and then we have Betty Abba, who wants to question the senator, and finally Kayode Ogundamisi. All join us via Zoom.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lojede. It's Yemi Adamolekum. Good afternoon, panelists, and thank you for having me. My first question is a build up to what Chioma just said. It was interesting to listen to Governor Rufai speak about how he got one of his senators out. That's actually the role of the citizens, not the role of the governor. But it's an interesting play of the dynamic of political office and political participation. To both governors, I know Kaduna State, like Lagos State, has a database, has a residence registration agency. I don't think that Ekiti State has one. But my question is, how are you using data? The country refuses to count its population. We don't have a census. We don't know how many people we have. So difficult to plan when you don't know your people. But in the context of security, I'm just curious how the governors are using the data of who is a Kaduna resident, who is an Ekiti State resident, when they come in, what they do, where they live, and how that's helping your security architecture. And to Senator Abaribe, Governor Fayemi has responded that they did come to meet senators. This year is what we have. What specific actions? Everybody's agreed for the most part on state policing and its critical nature. We've talked about the independence of the judiciary. What exactly is stopping the National Assembly from making this a reality? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We had some audio problem there. It's a little bit more difficult for those of us post-60s to hear well these days. So if anyone wants to help with what Ms. Adamaleku was trying to ask, okay. Can you just type can you type it, please? If you type the question, I'll come around to reading it out. Thank you very much. Let's go to Betty Abba. Yes,
Hello?
we have you, Betty. Are you unmuted?
Okay. Yes, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I have a quick question for the two governors and by extension, governors across the country, political office holders, and as many persons as have the responsibility of the constitutional responsibility of securing lives in Nigeria. My organization, Sea Hope, works with young persons, and over the years, we've had to work with internally displaced persons, especially across the Middle Belt and some parts of the North. And what we've discovered is in the aftermath of a major conflict, the persons who are impacted, who are displaced, are usually left to their own devices. They're left to their own, especially those who are not in the officially recognized IDP camps. And so we have orphanages springing up, especially across the Middle Belt, where we have thousands and thousands of young people, children, orphaned by the Boko Haram or the herdsmen crisis. And usually they do not get any form of help. So I would like to know, and also to get the assurance if our governors and as many persons as are connected with our responsibility in terms of protection, in terms of the welfare of these people who are displaced within their country, what they are doing to ensure that these people have some kind of a sense of belonging and that these children are cared for. Because what happens mostly is religious organizations take over, private individuals, private organizations. Why are our government not that caring for these orphanages, for these children? And from my own perspective, from my own observation, most of the time these are breeding grounds for children of anger. Can this situation actually be attended to?
Thank you, Betty Abba. I'll just take Kayode Gundamisi as well, and then we can try and tackle all of them together. Mr. Gundamisi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. My first question will go to Senator Abaribe. And I would just like to quickly quote from Yasser Arafat, who said that you negotiate with your enemies, not with your friends. Right now in the country, there is restiveness. People are not sure whether they belong to certain parts of the country. Considering Senator Abaribe's closeness to IPOB in Southeast Nigeria and the tension in that part of the country, would he use this opportunity to reassure Nigerians that non-Igbo people in Southeast Nigeria can still find that place as home? And how would he respond to this view that the problem we have is that politicians and public office holders are completely disconnected from many of our people who genuinely probably want a disintegration of the country, either rightly or wrongly, and that there should be conversations across all sections of the country among this group who have their right to self-determination, and what efforts will be made by political office holders, senators, to have these people speak, because they are the one carrying arms and they are not the one making policy, but they're causing a lot of discomfort in the country. The other part of my question goes to Governor Rufai and Governor Fayemi. As leading members of the APC, I am aware that political parties produce presidents. Your party controls the National Assembly. You have the Senate President, you have the Speaker of the House, and you have majority governor in the country. Considering the insecurity, the high level of insecurity in the country, do you have mechanism within the party? At what point do you go to the president and say, just not anymore? It's either something is done or we are going to invoke a party sanctions on the president. And at what point do House of Assembly members within your party come to you as governors and say, thus far no more, we need to do something, or you leave and let somebody else take over? So that internal mechanism where public office holders are made to account to the people. How do we reinvent that? During the Second Republic, particularly, you would have the party being supreme. Those are my two questions.
Thank you. Let me throw Yemi Adamulekun's question, which is now sent to us by text, and it's meant for the senator. What is stopping the National Assembly? What is stopping the National Assembly from devolving powers immediately to the states, police powers to the states, as well as more independent state judiciary? In other words, I think the frustration behind that question is this paralysis. We have all these people, they say they all understand, but then you don't act. So Yemi Adamuleku wants to know from you, what is stopping you? Right? And then you, of course, had the questions of all the others, and you can go back and forth as you please.
Let me say to Yemi, nothing is stopping us because the process is ongoing. And the process has three parts. The first one is where we are, which is the getting all the submissions, getting everybody's views, and then collating them, and then passing a vote on them. When we pass that vote, then we will send it to the states, where 2/3 of the states are supposed to also agree. And once 2/3 of the state agree and bring it back to us, we pass the final vote, and then it goes to the president for assent. It's a 3-stage process, and we are at the first stage. I know that everybody is really worried, and we are also worried. We want it to happen, and I'm sure that my colleagues who are also watching this program will also know that Nigerians are no longer very comfortable with our just not moving as fast as they want. Secondly, for Kayode, I think the problem, the reason why we're here is actually because of what Kayode has said. We are having this conversation because of all the misconceptions that are going on about the different groups in Nigeria. It's not just IPOB that say, why don't we just split? And we have also agreed here that that is not the best solution for each and every one of us, and that there should be some other things that we should do. Part of Kayode's submission, I don't agree with. It's also a form of profiling. You can't call IPOB people that they are burning, destroying, doing all those things. They will also come out and say, we never did that. Those who are doing that, you're not doing anything about them. So I think that since we are in the process of trying to cure an eye problem, we will find it very, very necessary to keep Pepe away from this cure that we are trying to get. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So just a quick follow-up on that. What is your commitment? Offer a public commitment about how this can be achieved. We should not leave this place with vagueness and good feeling. What is the commitment that you personally make here in public to making sure that some of these concrete proposals actually see the light of day during the course of this year?
Represent my people of Abia South Senatorial District and generally Nigerians, and I'm committed to it, and I can tell you that anything that should be done, I will do, and that is why I'm here.
Thank you. Governor.
I think well, first I want to make a comment on Chioma's question about what happened in the 2019 elections. You see, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Young people think that because the not too young to run bill has been passed and they joined a political party yesterday, they will go for elections tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. You must not come into any organization with a sense of entitlement. We are all young too. We walked through the ladder to get to where we are. Go into the party, walk, wait, you will get there. It's not going to happen in one election cycle. I have said before that what happened was that the Fourth Republic started wrongly in many ways because the best people kept away, okay? Once the not so good got in, they will try to bring people like them. They will try to be entrenched. And it takes time. It takes several election cycles to dislodge them, but they can be dislodged faster if you come in large numbers as party members and begin to push and push and push. Nobody gives power up. Nobody gives up power easily. So don't expect magic overnight. But since you are going to live for another 50, 60 years, you have more at stake in the future of this country than I do, because I have maybe, I don't know, much fewer years than you. So please go in there. Don't be discouraged. They may not want you there, but stay there because it's your country and you don't have any other choice. And wait and so on. Now, Kayode raised a very important question, which has been answered by Pastor Adeyemi. He said, at what point would we go to the president internal party and say this and that? Unfortunately, we are not just a textbook democracy. We are products of our culture and the way we are brought up and the various hierarchies that bound us. There are certain things that we cannot do today in Nigeria, okay? I'm just being very honest. It is highly unlikely that at any point, any State House of Assembly will assemble itself and go to a governor and say, you are not doing very well, we are going to impeach you. It doesn't work that way. The political process, the political culture is not that one. It's not the one in the House of Commons in the UK. So this is not likely to happen. Over time, and this is my clarion call all the time, good people come into politics, withstand the frustration and the insults, stay there so that the good people have the critical mass to dislodge the fringe politicians, the opportunistic ones. It will take a long time. It may not happen in one election cycle, but let us start. Let people come in and push and push and push so that we have better and better and better people. Having said that, I want to come back to what I proposed. I still believe that by the time we implement this devolution, these three issues out of more than 10 that we have put in our report, if we can just get this done this year, by the grace of God, you will see a completely different country, because more and more people will be focused on their states and the opportunities in their states rather than fight for a place at the table at the federal level. The biggest problem we have, I think, as a country is that the country is a federal republic in name, but a unitary state in practice. The federal government is too powerful. There is so much resources and rents available to fight over that we have all this problem. The size and the might of the federal government, coupled with its being overstretched, is part of the reason why everybody wants to come to Abuja. And to get there, you need to, push identity as your tool, rather than competence, rather than capacity, rather than delivery. But if we reduce these things and give the states more power, more resources, more accountability, you will see more people not wanting to come to Abuja, but working hard to develop their states. And I think that will solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor. So I will give one last question to one member of our outside audience. Eugenia Abu has been waiting patiently. And then I would ask all our panelists and speakers to devote just 1 minute to their closing thoughts. Thank you. Eugenia, very quick, please.
It's wonderful to join this cast of very brilliant and eminent speakers. I'd like to veer the conversation away a little. Most of the things that have been said are things that we're all concerned about. But I think part of the challenge that we have are that the values that we know were Nigerian values have been vacated by a number of Nigerians. The values of hard work, integrity, honesty. And those values are the values that people have put aside now and say the only value they are interested in is how to make money. And that's a challenge. Only recently we hear how Nigerians are selling COVID tests. I mean, what can kill somebody? How somebody is able to buy that and how somebody is able to sell that.
What's the question, Eugenia?
I'm not asking a question.
Oh,
I'm
I see. You're just offering a comment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm making a comment. I think it's critical that we should remember that those values are important. I teach at Bingham University, and I'm constantly among young people. And until you begin to explain to them some of the issues, young people just think the only thing that's important is to make money. Mentorship is the unexplored key to national development, I would say. And I'd like to finish by saying that there is a young person, I teach a summer school as well, between 7 and 14. And a young person came into our class one of those days and said he didn't like his partner, the young lady he was sitting with who was 9. He doesn't like her religion. He doesn't like her tribe. He doesn't want to sit with her. I'd like to pose it a question. Do you think that 11-year-old asked this question based on his own perception or based on his parents' perception? We also need to worry about media. There's too much illiteracy, and people are pushing agenda that really they don't even have the full picture of. So sometimes you read something and you're wondering, did this person understand?
We need to wrap up now, Eugenia. Right. Thank you very much. I
want to thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for that intervention. Because we've had a lot from our governors and our senator, I would give only our panelists the remaining small allotment of time, starting especially with Bamidele. You have about 30 seconds. What are your closing thoughts?
Thank you. On the political parties, I think Malam Nasir will be able to tell us that it takes about 4 to 5 billion to win a governorship race. So how are the small parties able to do that? I think young people should. It's a lot of.
You have 30 seconds.
How much, sir? Ballpark? A fraction? But a lot of money.
We need to move on,
okay.
Bamidele. Thank you.
I think the young people should register with the major political parties and overwhelm the parties and work their way through. Because power does not concede without a commensurate demand. So people should start working. And on security, there's no peace without justice. That's what I would like to say. I think we must fight for justice if we want peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Abubakar.
My question to the Senator. Doctrine of necessity.
Thank you very much.
All on Nigerians, the young ones, the civil society of us in private. This is three things needs to happen. You will have millions from all over the world backing the individuals. Let the ideas trump the political parties, and let the ideas trump all of the emotions that we are riding on today. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Chairman.
Final thing I'm going to say, 2 things. One, we must start to see national security not as geographical security, but as security of the citizens, as the safety of the citizens. That must become paramount, and I'm speaking particularly to our security forces. The second thing I'm going to say is, dear Nigerian, never stop speaking. Your voices matter. The more you speak, the more we're heard. Never stop speaking. Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone, for participating in this conversation. I am leaving trusting that we still have the capacity for shame. And if we have capacity for shame, then we cannot stand for this. This is just now a ridiculousness that pervades the land. So let us act to make this place a little better. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice weekend.